Welcome to Mental Health Matters. This is Hwee Boon, and today I would like to share something more lighthearted. Have you watched Finding Nemo before? If you have, you'll find that Marlin, who is the father of Nemo, is a pretty anxious clownfish. So what will it be like if Marlin goes for counselling or for therapy? And why would he do that? And when will he do that? Let's find out. In the movie Finding Nemo, Marlin first lost Nemo when Nemo was caught by a diver in the ocean, and he swam across the whole ocean just to look for him. While there were many occasions when Marlin was anxious, frustrated, and depressed, his act of finding Nemo managed to transform him and his relationship with Nemo and as well as Dory. If the story didn't go this way, these are the likely time points where Marlin might have gone for therapy if he knew what therapy was and he wanted to go for it. In the opening scene of Finding Nemo, you had Marlin talking to Coral, who was his wife, about this new place that they had, this huge ocean view and lots of place for the children to play with if they grow up. And then there was the barracuda attack, where he wanted Coral to get back to the anemone, but Coral decided to defend the children. And then when Marlin rushed over to try and chase after Coral, he was attacked by the barracuda, and then that knocked him out, and he flew into the anemone where he lived, and he blacked out. When he woke up later, the Coral was no more, and the children were no more except for one egg, which was Nemo. So if, let's say, Marlin was quite depressed after that, he questioned himself and he felt he had survivor's guilt, like, why did I survive and why didn't Coral survive? How can fate be so cruel to him? And that if he dreams about the barracuda attack every night, he had nightmares, etc., then it might disturb him and cause him to become very anxious and having flashbacks all the time and this and that. So if that's the case, then he would have gone to counseling or for therapy for grief and loss, or maybe for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. However, because Nemo was around, Nemo was the remaining one egg around, the likelihood for Marlin to go for therapy was quite low, because then after there was the grief about Coral and the kids, he had a new meaning to life, which is to take care of Nemo and support him as the single parent. So this gave his life a whole new meaning, which is one of the reasons why he didn't actually develop much emotional disturbance.
One more move, mister.
So you can see that Nemo, despite warnings from Marlin, decided to touch the butt and rebelled against him. And if, let's say, Nemo didn't actually get caught by the diver, then what could have happened was that Marlin could have stayed quite angry, and then he continued to scold and lecture on Nemo. And Nemo could have a few choices. One was that he might just find it was too much, and then he stayed angry, and then he said more things and shared what he really felt. Then perhaps they will have a period of time where there were disagreements and they are cold to each other, so they stay away, and finally they'll patch back. So that's one possibility. Another possibility was that Nemo, having his first rebellious act, decided to just submit to his father. So maybe when Marlin lectured on him, he just decided to apologize and just say that he know his mistake and things like that. But over time, because Nemo is also growing up, and if Marlin continues to be quite protective, overprotective, and that doesn't really allow him to do things, berate him that he just can't do it, he's too young, or it's not safe out there, he can't, and he's not a good swimmer or everything, then Nemo might start to actually become more and more rebellious, and then the father-son relationship will be a lot more strained. So when that happens, and if let's say Nemo decides to move away or leave home and etc., then Marlin will get very angry and very upset. So he might be then going for therapy or going for counselling and talking about how come Nemo is so immature, how come he's not understanding, and how can he be so rude, so rebellious. And he might know, apart from like just venting all these things and wanting Nemo to just act his way, he might also express certain amounts of sorrow or sadness and his fear, and he might want to try and get Nemo to come back, or how they can actually patch the relationship. This is another time point and reason why Marlin might go for therapy. So in the scenario that I described earlier on, it was if let's say Nemo touched the boat but he did not get caught by the diver. But if he did, then Marlin, in the scene itself, what happened was that Marlin was taken a picture of, and then I think he got blown off by the engine in the end, and then he just got knocked out again. So for him, if let's say he remained disturbed by this scene of Nemo being caught, and he has recurrent nightmares of the diver, of Nemo being in distress, etc., then he might actually have PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, and then it might disturb him, causing him to feel more and more anxious, and that he can't really function, and that he's focused on just the boat and this scene that may occur to him. Like for example, if he's swimming in the ocean and then suddenly he saw something blue, or he hear a loud engine noise, then he will suddenly be brought back to the scene where Nemo was caught. So this is significant disturbance, and if he doesn't go for therapy, then his quality of life will decrease. So this is a possible time point where he might go for help as well, if he cannot sleep and he keeps thinking about the situation and keeps having nightmares, and he keeps feeling frozen and or angry or upset, or there are startles. So if let's say a fish swim by, then he's startled, because he thought that it's a diver or something. So that will be a time where he might go for counseling or therapy. A third possibility, where Marlin was actually looking for Nemo. So in this scene, you can see that after Marlin woke up from his blackout, he was swimming frantically in the ocean looking for people, if they have seen the boat or seen his son, and then you have all these fishes swimming all across, but nobody attending to him or talking to him. Everybody seems to be busy. So if let's say Dory didn't come his way, or that they didn't have the accident, or that Dory didn't actually tell him that there was a boat that she saw, then this might continue for years and years. So Marlin might be trying to give out flyers or asking every single fish out there who swims there if they have seen the boat or if they have seen the sun, and etc. And he'll be stuck in that, and he might become quite focused on just looking for his son, and that all other manners of life like hygiene and like to get the anemone to sting him so that he has the protective coating, etc. Maybe he doesn't do that anymore, or he doesn't care to talk to anyone except if it's related to looking for his son. So with that, he might actually develop depression, and that is why he might actually go for counseling or for therapy. But when he goes for counseling or therapy, if let's say another fish friend who suggested or forced him to go for it, he might first be just talking about Nemo and the incident of Nemo being caught by the diver, and then this whole incident altogether, and then needs to try and find Nemo. So he's stuck. There's this obsessive part about him to find Nemo or what he can do about it. So this is another reason why Marlin might go for therapy. If let's say after looking for Nemo for a long period of time and then he somehow lost hope, someday some fish or some incident caused him to think that Nemo is dead, then he might actually go into a depression because maybe there's no function for him, there's no meaning for him to live on anymore, and then he might turn suicidal as well. He might disregard personal hygiene and become quite disheveled or very cynical or very paranoid. He might feel that the ocean is very unsafe and that he tells the whole world that the ocean is very unsafe, whether or not people listen to him, or that he might start to develop certain sensitivities, like if he were to see anything that's similar to a boat, then he'll maybe get a panic attack, or that he'll feel very anxious, or that he might also decide that the world and the ocean out there is too dangerous for him, so he'll just stay in the anemone for the longest time, not going out, etc., because outside is just not safe enough. So to a certain extent, he might develop agoraphobia, that going outside place is dangerous, or other related anxiety disorders. So if let's say he just stay there for too long and he doesn't go out and there's a concerned fish or something which forced him to go for therapy, or that there were some social services, etc., then Marlin might be going for counselling or therapy for such issues like anxieties, paranoia or something. That is if he talks about it. One other possibility, when let's say Marlin loses Nemo and that Nemo cannot be found and that he didn't actually meet Dory, he might blame himself repeatedly for everything that's happened. Like for example with Coral, he was the one who got the new place, the new anemone, which is so fabulous and fantastic, but it also caused the death of Coral and his kids. And for Nemo, he might also blame himself again that he didn't swim fast enough, or that he didn't warn Nemo more, or why did he go and talk to the teacher about going to school later, etc., instead of just looking at Nemo. And in both cases, it's that his family members were in danger and that he just was out of the picture. He was either knocked out or he was blinded by light and etc., which caused him to not be able to save them or get to them. So for that, he might also blame himself. And then if all this excessive self-blame goes to him, he might become very apathetic, having no life at all, or that he might feel suicidal as well, that I'm the cause of their deaths and there's no meaning and I should join them. If let's say Marlin becomes suicidal, he may decide to take his life very lightly and then he just rush forward whenever he sees any predator. Like if he sees barracudas, he might just rush out recklessly to try and get eaten. Okay, one other possibility is that Marlin might become very angry as well. Then, like for example, why didn't Coral listen to him? Because he did tell Coral to come back to the anemone. And why didn't Nemo listen to him as well? If both of them had listened to him, they would not actually have died or went missing, etc. So it's all because of them not being able to listen to him. So he might become very cynical, quite angry at everybody around. And then beyond that, he might also become very depressed, that whatever other fishes choose is not within his control and it's scary and it causes them to die, but he can't do anything about it. So both angry and depressed at the same time. So this is something which Marlin might have as well, and which could have been attended to in counselling or therapy. One other scenario where Marlin might decide to go for therapy is when Nemo says, "I hate you." In this scene, Marlin says that you just can't do it.
You think you could do these things, but you
then
just can't,
Nemo
Nemo.
was quite resentful, and then he says, so in the scene you can see how Marlin was taken aback by what Nemo said, but this scene was interrupted by Ray, who's the teacher, who then decided to intercept and to find out what's wrong, etc. But this may actually stay with Marlin, and that he keeps feeling hurt by what Nemo said, and then he will wonder whether he has been a bad father and etc. Why did Nemo hate him, and what he should do about it. This I hate you play out could be something which can be covered quite easily. So it came out once in the movie, but if let's say like Marlin was distracted by Ray or something and Nemo doesn't pursue it, it could just be forgotten, but it will be beneath all these other things that's out there, and now and then it can get triggered, and Nemo, who has said it once, might say it again. So if let's say Marlin continues to be very anxious and being the helicopter father he is, stopping Nemo from doing all his age appropriate things, being very controlling, being very protective, then Nemo might slowly start to resent Marlin, and then they might start to quarrel each time they meet and then become quite distant. So this is a trajectory that can happen as well, with part of the controlling and safety protective end of things. When that happens, then Marlin might go for therapy or counselling to express a lot of the things that he feels, like for example disappointment or sadness or anger and everything else. Okay, one last situation where Marlin might actually go for therapy is when he found that Nemo was dead. So if let's say he didn't see Nemo again alive, in the scene itself he was so sad and depressed that he didn't want to even bother with Dory anymore, regardless of how much Dory finds that he's important and helpful for her. He might feel depressed and lifeless and sad, not wanting to do anything, life not having meaning, and if this might go on for a very long time. In this state, Marlin will probably not go for therapy on his own, but somebody else might refer him, and he might just talk to the person because he doesn't really have much energy to reject or refuse, and then he might be talking about his grief and lack of hope or any meaning anymore, and maybe express thoughts of joining Nemo as well as Coral. So this is another time point where Marlin might go for therapy or counselling because his fish friends asked him to go for it. So these are the various issues that might be brought up, and if let's say Marlin goes for therapy and for counselling and it's successful in the sense that he did get help from it and that he improved, how will it be like for him when that happens? So what will happen is that Marlin might be still fearful and anxious in dangerous or difficult situations, but he will be able to learn how to trust, and that he might let go and explore new possibilities, even though he feels anxious as well. So like for example in the scene with Nemo and the tuna, while it was very dangerous and he really don't want to lose Nemo again, I think out of the concern that Dory is also involved, he managed to let go of Nemo and to decide to listen to Nemo. So this was transformed for him. If let's say Marlin recovers in therapy or he gets better, he might be able to form new relationships and become more sociable again, talking to other fishes and etc. So like in this
Then
scene
the
here,
sea
you can
cucumber
see
looks over
how
the
he
mollusk
is
and
actually
says,
making jokes,
"Prawns like these, who
as
needs an
a
lemon?"
clownfish, and you have other fish parents who are laughing and etc. and talking, socializing and interacting with him. And of course, if let's say Marlin gets better in therapy or counseling, he will then be able to play and relax and have fun now and then. So that's the result of therapy if it went on well. Did Marlin have a mental disorder? In one of my earlier broadcasts, I talked about DSM-5 and mental disorders having to be diagnosed. And mental disorders are those that meets the criteria for diagnosis, and then henceforth the person has a mental disorder also. In Marlin's situation, there are some possibilities, like for example, he's quite anxious and that he can be quite paranoid. He also went through quite traumatic incidents, so he could actually develop like PTSD or an anxiety disorder or even a paranoid personality disorder. But from what we can see in the clip or what we can see in the movie itself, he doesn't actually meet any of the criteria. We don't see scenes of him having nightmares of coral and waking up in cold sweat, etc. We also do not see how he become quite tired and not doing any other things out there. Some of the only scenes that we see are that he being a helicopter father, being protective and being quite wary of danger and etc. in the world. So I would say that Marlin has a mental health issue, but he doesn't have a mental disorder. But if let's say in the earlier time points which I talked about, if let's say the movie didn't go the way it did, that he didn't go after Nemo to save him, or that he went after Nemo but he couldn't save him, or that he went after Nemo and that found that Nemo was dead, then he might actually go on to develop mental disorder based on some of the mental health issues that he had. In a different aspect of things, it could mean that you don't need to actually go for counseling or therapy if you can just go on an adventure just like Marlin and then come back changed. In life, it could be like that as well. So there are many different situations where we meet every day, and at certain time points where it has a call to adventure for us to actually go into the unknown. A person, if let's say he or she does not go into the unknown or go into this call for adventure, does not heed the call or just delay it too much, then a person might actually develop a mental health issue or also a mental disorder if it gets aggravated or it becomes quite extreme. To a certain extent, if one is able to go on the adventure like Marlin did, despite being scary, despite it being unknown, and despite it being quite dangerous, a person might be able to grow and then having a new reality and etc. But with that, if let's say if one doesn't actually assimilate all the new changes, doesn't find meaning in what has happened, etc., it may also cause a mental health disturbance as well, and which can then be resolved in therapy or counseling, which we can then help to digest. Hope that you had a good time listening to Marlin going for therapy if he did today. Thanks for watching and see you again. Bye.